Support for this podcast comes from Progressive, a leader in RV insurance. We've all made RVing mistakes, like not pest-proofing the RV for winter, but there's one mistake you shouldn't make: not insuring your travel trailer. Progressive RV insurance can protect your travel trailer when your auto or home insurance can't. Get a quote at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.
At your job, do you ever have to deal with a nose roller? How about a snub pulley? Well, if you're installing a new conveyor belt system, dealing with the different components can sound like you're speaking a foreign language. Luckily, you've got a team ready to help. Grainger's technical product specialists are fluent in maintenance, repair, and operations. So whenever you want to talk shop, just reach out. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Attack the Baseline, a WNBA podcast where every episode we attack our baseline knowledge of the WNBA. It is mid-November, and we are sure in the doldrums of the WNBA offseason, and today we have a very exciting episode where we're going to do a women college basketball primer, where we talk with a great friend of ours, our original guest, about the ins and outs of this year's college basketball season and who to watch and who to look forward to in the upcoming WNBA draft. The lottery taking place tomorrow. So big day, big weekend. Before we get into that, Kristen, how's it going today?
Great. Having a great little fall weekend.
Mhm.
Shopping, coffee.
All that
I'm
good
doing
stuff.
Great. Mm-hmm.
And joining us today, as already mentioned, our original guest, our first guest of the pod, friend of the pod, Dat. Dat, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me back on the podcast. It's always fun to come back and share my experience with the two of you.
Yeah, you are our woman college basketball expert. You mentioned when we talked about the Seattle Storm, which is your team, that you are a bigger fan of the women college game because you've been connected to your alma mater, and you've been able to witness good teams and good players throughout your lifetime. So we're very excited for you to be able to share some of those details about this current season and what we can look forward to the 2025 WNBA season with some of these college prospects coming out.
Yeah, I went to Stanford as an undergrad, so I was very fortunate to be a fan of the Stanford women's basketball program led by legendary coach Tara Vanderveer, who just after last season retired after a legendary 30-year career, leading Stanford to 3 national titles and numerous now defunct Pac-12 championships. So that's how I became a fan of the program. It's easy when you have such a good program to root for.
Yeah, totally.
Mm-hmm.
Before we go too deep, if you're new here, welcome to Attack the Baseline. Normally we're talking about the W, but this week we're going to talk about the college game. If you'd like to connect with us, you can do so at our email, attackthebaseline@gmail.com, or connect with us on our Twitter at ATBPod_, or connect with us on Bluesky at ATBPod. We're there too.
I would like to say, as we attack our baselines here,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about you, John. You are similar to me, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
My baseline knowledge of women's college basketball
Mm-hmm.
is the University of Delaware women's team from the years of 2017 and 2018.
I'm a little further back. I have 2016 in there too.
Okay.
But yes, we very much have University of Delaware women's basketball, and then this past year's tournament, watching Caitlin and Iowa and Paige and UConn. Maybe a little bit of the LSU team with Angel, but really like not that in the know about it, which is why we're fortunate to have someone like Dat who is so plugged in on this subject because there are huge implications of the college game on the WNBA. And if we're going to be continually growing our knowledge of the WNBA, it's best to know these players that are going to make huge impacts immediately when they join the league, or who may make huge impacts in the long term, some of these diamonds in the rough. So let's start from the top, Dat. Tomorrow is the WNBA draft lottery, the a very important draft lottery at that. The bottom four teams this year being the Sparks, the Wings, the Mystics, and the Sky, will be in this position where they have a number of lottery balls and a number of combinations that, if they're drawn, one of them will get the number one pick, and then they'll do another combination of lottery balls. The number two will get the number two overall pick. And then with the third pick, it'll be between the two teams that are left over. The team with the lowest record or the worst record will get that 3 pick, and then the other team will get the 4 pick. So it's interesting. I've been a fan of NBA draft lotteries, but the W is a much smaller operation because there's only 4 teams that missed the playoffs. But looking at these 4 lottery picks in the upcoming WNBA draft, who should we expect to see in those 4 spots as it stands right now? I know it's really early, the season just started, but who do we anticipate could be those top 4 picks?
Well, I think there's 2 consensus top 2 picks. Obviously, the buzz this last season has been, last year is about the Caitlin Clark sweepstakes. Who's going to get Caitlin Clark? This year, as you've talked about in this season's episodes, is the Paige Beckers sweepstakes. She's the consensus number 1. She's been, Caitlin Clark has kind of overshadowed her the last couple of years, but coming out of high school, and she was the buzziest name. She was the can't miss prospect everyone was talking about when she graduated from high school and going into UConn. And she's been as good as advertised. Unfortunately, she had to miss a season 2 years ago, the whole season, but she's looked good since she's been back, and she's the consensus number 1 pick. The number 2 pick is Kiki Iriafen, who Tim also mentioned in last week's episode, coming out of USC via Stanford. She originally started at Stanford, but she's emerged as the number 2 pick. What's interesting is beyond that. After that, there's a lot more fluctuations. Those 2 are have distanced themselves as the top 2 picks. The rest of the possibilities are a little bit up in the air because there's no one has really emerged outside of those 2 as the number 3 or 4 pick, because each have had their pros and cons.
Gotcha. So there is no consensus after 2.
Yeah.
I know, like, Kristen and I have seen on some lists, like an Ozzy Fudd could be a person in that spot. Do you have a gut feeling at this point in time, or is it still like completely a mystery to even you, who's very locked in?
I think it's a little bit of a mystery. I think it depends on who gets the number 3 or 4 picks, because these other prospects have their pros and cons, and just may depend on team need when it comes to that. I think the player that has the most upside, regardless of position or need, is actually a player you might have seen in the Olympics. She's not even playing college basketball this year. Is Dominique Mulunga out of France. I don't know if you saw any of her during the Olympics this past summer, but she is like 6'6". She has very good athleticism and rebounding, and she's still pretty raw. But people, during my research, they argue that she possibly, besides Beckers, has the biggest upside in this year's draft.
Really? And she's draft eligible, even though she's she's at the point of experience.
Yes.
Interesting. The name rings a bell. I mean, obviously the French team was very good against the U.S. women's team, so it would make sense that they would look toward these French prospects. And there's a lot of buzz around former French players being on this upcoming Valkyries team. So wouldn't be shocked if that 3rd or 4th pick goes somewhere not expected outside of the women college game
Mhm.
in the U.S. But yeah, that's pretty interesting. It's pretty
Mhm.
interesting.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as we've been saying, international players are just another whole step of from our knowledge at the
Correct.
moment. So we're getting there, but I definitely appreciate that, Dad, bringing that up. Instead of just looking at who's, in the US right now,
Hmm.
teams are looking, especially these teams that don't, have all the pieces they need right now to win, these teams that are on the bottom.
Hmm.
Um, it makes sense to look internationally.
Yeah, yeah. I'm looking forward. Kristen and I, we've mentioned this on the show already, but we have the opportunity to see Paige against Villanova when they visit in our neck of the woods. So it'll be cool to see a prospect before they're in the W. And I know we talk about Paige a lot, and we will talk about Paige a lot, but it's exciting to know. You said so far with the start of the season, she's been as good as advertised in what you've seen
Yes.
so far.
Yes, I watched the game yesterday. UConn played North Carolina. I think she ended up with around 30 points. She's shot 12 of 20. She's shooting like I think around 60 to 70% from the field. I mean, it's very small sample size, just like 3 games very early on this season. But that continues the trend. She shoots around 60% from inside the arc. She's
Wow.
pretty much money from. She loves the mid-range jumper. That's kind
Hmm.
of differentiates herself from Caitlin Clark. I think Clark is a very flashy
Hmm.
player. Loves those logo threes, as you know.
Right.
Becca's is more like looking for the mid-range jumper. She's looking to get inside. That doesn't mean that she can't hit the three-pointer. She's like a 40% shooter from outside, but she's much more comfortable kind of being inside the arc. And once she's inside the arc, she's pretty much almost unstoppable.
Mm.
Oh, I love a mid-range jumper. It's my favorite type of game.
Uh-huh.
I already talked about how much I love watching Courtney Williams. I mean, Asia's really good inside the arc. So having another player in the league, and it's interesting that you bring up that she's differentiated herself from Caitlin in that respect. That she doesn't shoot these logo threes. Um, Efficiency is going to be king in the W. So like if she can bring efficiency to a team that needs shooting, then she's going to be incredibly valuable. I'm
Mhm.
curious because I don't really know Kiki's game. Like, what is her style of play? If she's going to be this number 2 overall pick, is she, bigger, more bully ball, or is she also a mid range shooter or a logo shooter?
She's a forward.
Hmm.
She so like she as I mentioned earlier, she started her collegiate career at Stanford, and so the first couple of years, her freshman sophomore year, she came off the bench. She was a top 20 prospect heading out of high school, but she didn't play too much. She was playing behind Cameron Brink. But then last season, going into her junior year, she was the most improved player, not just on Stanford's team, but probably for the entire collegiate scene. Her like averages jumped from like 6 points a game to like almost 20 points a game. She emerged as like this all-American type player. And what she really improved on is her face-up game. She
Mm.
her ability to just take people off the bounce and either just hit this great mid-range jumper or just drive to the basket. So that's
Mm.
really her game. She's not like this tallest, but she's I think around like maybe 6'2", 6'3". So yeah, she really worked on her offensive game between like the 2 years ago and last year, and really made that incredible jump up.
Mhm.
Nice.
Awesome. So looking back to last year, our girl Dawn Staley and the South Carolina Gamecocks
Mhm.
um, won the title, right?
Yeah, correct.
Okay. Um, how are they looking this year? Are they, expected to make another run for it?
Definitely. I mean, the only notable loss they lost from the previous year is Codoso. They
Hmm.
returned everyone else, plus they got the number 2 recruit out of high school and coming in as well.
Mm.
So there, I mean, last year Don Saley won the national title, having replaced all 5 starters from the previous year. So
It's crazy.
she she has the coaching prowess to make things work. So it's an experienced team. There's no like superstar. There's no like Aaliyah Boston on the team, but what they lack in like a superstar, they make up in incredible depth. So definitely they're one of the favorites to win the title this year and defend their championship from last year.
Makes sense. So, okay, so we've got UConn, we've got USC, we've got the other USC.
That's so confusing to me.
It's very confusing. Is there like another, like if we say these are three of the best odds to, win a championship, who else could be up there? Who could surprise? Is there like a dark horse team in this year's college scene?
I would add UCLA to USC, South Carolina, and UConn as probably my four favorites to win the title this year. UCLA is loaded. They're led by Lauren Betts, again via Stanford. She originated at Stanford as well, and she transferred to UCLA after her freshman year. She's like 6'8". She's really tall, like a really centered kind of Brittany Griner BG type of player. She's like automatic from like inside the paint. They got a couple of transfers after last season. They got Janiah Barker from Texas A&M, a power forward. They got Shalise Ledger Walker from Washington State, and they still have Kiki Rice, who's a great guard. So they're pretty loaded as well. So I would put those four as my four favorites to win the title. But that's not, I mean, you still have LSU, who lost Angel Reese, but they're still a really great team. You got Texas. They have a great backcourt in Rory Harmon and Madison Booker, and Notre Dame, Hannah Hodago, Olivia Miles. They're very good. So, but I would put those four, UCLA, USC, South Carolina, and UConn as above the rest of the field, but that gap is not too big.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah, I recognize some of these names that you're saying.
We hear, I mean, there's buzz, there's other buzz, but like it's good. It's good to just hear the names more often.
Yeah.
Then you're like, okay. And then you can tune into a game with some of these higher profile games on any college basketball Saturday, and you might be able to see one of those very talented players that, if you follow the W and not women's college basketball, then you can expect to hopefully see.
At your job, do you ever have to deal with a nose roller? How about a snub pulley? Well, if you're installing a new conveyor belt system, dealing with the different components can sound like you're speaking a foreign language. Luckily, you've got a team ready to help. Grainger's technical product specialists are fluent in maintenance, repair, and operations. So whenever you want to talk shop, just reach out. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. Shopify is there to help you grow. Shopify helps you sell everywhere, from their all-in-one e-commerce platform to their in-person POS system. Shopify's got you covered. Shopify helps you turn browsers into buyers with the internet's best converting checkout, 36% better on average compared to other leading commerce platforms, and sell more with less effort thanks to Shopify Magic, your AI-powered all-star. What I love about Shopify is how no matter how big you want to grow, Shopify gives you everything you need to take control and take your business to the next level. Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the U.S., and Shopify is the global force behind Allbirds, Rothy's, and Brooklinen, and millions of other entrepreneurs of every size across 175 countries. Plus, Shopify's award-winning help is there to support your success every step of the way. Because businesses that grow with Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/Westwood1, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/Westwood1 now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/Westwood1.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Because Progressive offers discounts for paying in full, owning a home, and more. Plus, you can count on their great customer service to help you when you need it, so your dollar goes a long way. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save on car insurance. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states or situations.
A player I want to talk about that I've heard buzz about, Anissa Morrow.
Yes.
What do you know about Anissa Morrow? Because I've heard that she was maybe a higher profile player that might not be off to the best start as far as like her shooting is concerned. Is there like worry that she's falling back, or she's still expected to be like one of these top prospects going out of this year's season?
Yeah, she is no more. You hit the nail on the head. Her shooting is not her forte. She's known. She started her collegiate career at I think it was she transferred into LSU. I think it's Kansas State, if I'm not mistaken. She is no more for like her rebounding, her defensive ability rather than her scoring. And that what I alluded to earlier is like she's among the prospects where, you know, like if you're looking for like a rebounder, some like, you know, a front court presence, then that's the person you should target. But her deficiencies are like, you know, her shooting, her ability to create her own offense. So that's something that, you know, that's why she's not higher on people's draft boards, is that there's still some question marks about her offensive abilities, especially translated to the next higher level.
Got it.
Who does she play for? Did we say
LSU.
that?
LSU.
Okay.
LSU now, yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, still, as far as we know, she's been on the first round projection list, and you know, I so this is this considered to be, you know, like a premier, like all-time generational draft class, or is this going to be like a step down? I know like Paige and Kiki are prime players, and if you go outside of that, there are all these names that we know, but sometimes I feel like people talk about this is so far and beyond a generational class, and last year's class was so good, like 7, 8, 9, 10, you know, starter level players deep. Is that sort of the expectation, even if we don't know who's going to go past, let's say, the second pick? Should we still be expected for some of the cream of the crop to rise, and this to be, you know, 10 years from now, we're going to say that 2025 draft class is crazy?
I think you should maybe lower your expectations a little bit, especially after the first picks. I mean, I think there's potential there for like the players after Kiki and Paige to be, contributors on the WNBA level, especially with 3 more teams starting with the Valkyries next year. You'll have more opportunities for them to make their presence known, to really show the league what they're capable of, what their potential is, because now with the limited teams, they might be stuck behind somebody who's already starting. But with 3 more teams, you know, around 36 more roster spots, they'll have the opportunity to work on their games, you know, on like as a starter, as a key contributor, and really make their presence known. But at this point, I think there's still a lot of question marks, I think, after the first 2 picks.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, that's good to know.
When we zoom out now, looking further down the road, 26, 27, really the only player that I feel like Kristen and I know that's highly talked about, Juju Watkins, a player that, listener Tim is so sure that the Golden State Valkyries will end up with somehow in 2027. Who are some of those players on college teams that are, you know, prime talent, future draft classes that we should be paying attention to now because they're already talented enough? I mean, I saw an article that was like, Juju's ready to play for the W. She just legally is not allowed to be drafted.
Sure.
So, which is a shame because, you know, it's one and done in the NBA. And they're even looking to go to high school level, but I feel like there's no rumor about them changing the way that they do that in the W. It's like 3 years of service or something like that. You got to be 20, 21 or something like that to be drafted.
22, yeah, something like
22.
that during
Later.
during the year of the draft, I think it is.
It's which is crazy to me.
Yeah,
But
it's late.
so Juju will take a while, but like outside of just Juju Watkins, what are some other names that people should be paying attention to because they're going to be, a future WNBA star?
Well, let me just briefly touch on Juju. I mean, she just broke the 1,000-point mark. I think she set a record for most points last year as a freshman. She scored 920 points as a freshman, and I do agree that she's ready for the WNBA. She's just incredible. But beyond that, to answer your question, I think the player that I mentioned, Lauren Betts, just because of her height, a 6'8", she can play the BG kind of role for a team. So you can't really, you can't teach height there. UConn, when you watch UConn, watch out for, they got the number 1 prospect of high school again this year, 6'2" forward Sarah Strong. And I saw her play a little bit in the North Carolina match yesterday. She's really good. Next year, Lauren Betts' younger sister, who also just committed to UCLA, Sienna Betts, will be coming in. She's number 2 prospect. So, I mean, those are a couple of players off the top of my head that are younger players that you want to like really reach out to, look out for this season. And a couple of the players on the draft board, like a couple of the question marks are that they're still juniors, but they're draft eligible, but they might come back for another season with their respective collegiate clubs. Like Olivia, Hannah Hidalgo of Notre Dame. So Skylar Diggins-Smith, Jewel Lloyd, Agubawale. All those players, what they have in common? They're all out of Notre Dame. Notre Dame, some college universities in football are known as tight end U. For Notre Dame, it's like guard U, guard.
Gotcha.
And they're still developing. Hannah Hidalgo, Olivia Miles. They're the next generation of guard prospects that are probably going to make a name in the WNBA.
I mean, that's as important too. But like, we're going to pay closer attention to the college game now, just because for the sake of the podcast, it's valuable to have some of this information ahead of time. That's how you attack your baseline, people. You learn way far in the future. Like, I don't know if we're going to know high school prospects or like middle school prospects that are going to be generational. Because even when I learn about NBA stuff, it's like this 12-year-old is going to take the league by storm in 7 to 8 years. And it always blows my mind. But, players are getting better younger at, the sport of basketball. So it's not going to be shocking when we hear more players like Juju Watkins, who are super young, are going to be future stars in the league. And I hope that eventually the league gets to the point where they're willing to draft earlier, even with the limited number of roster spots, which is partially the problem.
Right. That's what I was going to say. I hope they continue past these next 4 teams and keep expanding.
Right.
So that these new players really have a chance, because that just kind of sucks. Like, we're talking about all these really good players, so exciting, and then they could get to the W and be cut because there's just not enough teams.
Right.
So that's sad. I hope, this momentum keeps going for sure. I wanted to bring up again, I know we talked about it a couple podcasts ago, I'm not sure when, but the players in the W that are coaches in this offseason for college teams. Because I don't know what you said, that put this into my mind, because it wasn't JC Sheldon, and you didn't say Ohio State, but I was just reminded that JC Sheldon recently got a job at Ohio State University as a director of player development, and I believe an assistant coach. So she'll be there,
right,
helping develop some of the Ohio State women.
Right.
And then we have a short list of some other players. Maddie Segrist, who we'll be seeing at Villanova, which is exciting. Ryan Howard, who will be at Florida. Victoria Vivians at Mississippi State, and Rachel Banham in Minnesota. So I guess none of those college teams are like the best, perhaps, to win the title this year.
Right.
But it's still exciting for them that they can go back and help develop players.
Yeah. I don't know if that's like, if there's, I think there's a historical precedent. I know more players in previous years would do this. But now I wonder if there's more opportunities, worldwide to do more things in the off season than instead of going back to, your university, your alma mater, to be an assistant coach, even though that seems like a pretty cool job, in my opinion. But we already know that like Paige Beckers will be a member of Unrivaled next year.
True.
She already has ownership of the league, even though she's still a college player. But yeah, I mean, it is cool that people are still connected to their universities or a university that they, for some reason, affiliate themselves with, and are willing to go back and be a coach. Kind of cool. Keeps it connected to the college game.
I mean, the scheduling works. The WNBA
True.
season is during the summer, and the collegiate season is during the winter mostly. So that works out well. That they're able to go back to, with the exception of Ryan Howard, who went to Kentucky for her undergrad. Every other player that you mentioned is going back to where they played collegiate ball. So there's that already that natural connection to, help contribute to the next generation of players.
Right.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, it is cool. Okay, as we wind it down here, Dat, I want to give you the opportunity, if there's a subject we didn't touch on, maybe a team, a player, just a general thing about this year's women's college basketball season that you want to talk about, floor's yours. Like, let us know. What should we know that we don't already know from this pod?
Well, I think, zooming out on a macro sense, I think the biggest thing that has affected the women's game, collegiate game, the last couple of years is NIL and transfers. It's much easier to transfer teams. For example, Angel Reese, she graduated from LSU. She helped lead the Lady Tigers to a national title, but she actually started at Maryland for her collegiate career before transferring. I've mentioned a couple of originally Stanford players like Lauren Betts, Kiki Ariofing, who have transferred to other schools since they started at Stanford. I mean, unfortunately, after every season, the players, start transferring. That's part of the game now, which is a little bit unfortunate for more traditionalists who enjoy watching a player being recruited and then the 3-4 year journey with that team. It's now more with the rise of NIL money, it's sometimes who has the highest bid in terms of I want to play for another school or have this opportunity at another school. So that's on a macro level, that's kind of been the biggest kind of change in the collegiate game. The other thing is, I think you're getting into the collegiate game at a time where it's much deeper, a broader base in terms of for a long time, UConn is still the gold standard of women's college basketball. They've won 11 national titles, the most in history. I mean, they've had the two longest winning streaks in either men's or women's college basketball: a 111 game winning streak and a 90 game winning streak.
Wow,
crazy.
2 years ago, they lost consecutive games, which losing consecutive games is not something unusual, but that was the first time it happened since 1993. They went 30 years without losing consecutive games. That kind of shows, and since ESPN started their high school recruiting rankings, they've gotten 10 out of the last 18 number one recruits. No other school has more than 3. But so during the Breanna Stewart era, they won 4 national titles with Stewie, and Morgan Tuck and Mariah Jefferson. They lost only 5 times when Stewart was playing for UConn. I mean, I could go on for the incredible streaks. Yesterday when UConn won, Gino tied Tara with the most wins in college basketball. I think it's 1,216, and
Wow.
he's still going strong.
Yeah.
But my point of all that is now, UConn is now alone at the top. You have South Carolina, Dawn Staley. South Carolina has not been historically like one of the powerhouse programs in the college game. It had been Tennessee for a long time under the late great Pat Summitt. Before UConn, they won 8 titles in the 90s and early 2000s. The last title was led by Candace Parker in 2008.
Mm-hmm.
But Staley has built like the next powerhouse program at South Carolina, and then programs like UCLA, USC now, Notre Dame, Stanford. Historically, it's much deeper than for a long time. It was just UConn and everyone else, but now there's much more, and there's many. I mean, UConn is still really, really good. On their roster right now, they have 3 of the last 5 number 1 recruits: Beckers, Fudd, and Sarah Strong. So they're really good, but they're not alone at the top.
Mm-hmm.
Which is good. It's good that the league has at least some level of parity, or at least some level of multiple talents, so that it's not a guarantee come tournament time that UConn runs away with another title.
Mm-hmm.
And like we haven't seen it that recent, so I don't know. This could be UConn's year. I wouldn't be shocked.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just good to know that nothing's guaranteed, and that the level of talent throughout women's college basketball is pretty strong right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think last thing, Dat, that I have for you, and if you have anything else, feel free to add, is if there was 1, 2, maybe 3 games that are mandatory viewing for fans of the W that just want to see great hoops this year on the college basketball calendar, like what are the must-see games this year? Like, you got to tune in.
So 2 of them are actually coming up next weekend. Next Saturday, the 23rd, you have USC versus Notre Dame. So Juju Watkins, now joined by Kiki Iriafen, and from Oregon State, Talia Van Ohoffen, will face off against Hannah Hidalgo, Olivia Miles, Sonia Citron. That's a great matchup. And then on Sunday, the 24th, you got UCLA versus South Carolina. That's another must-see game. You got, the defending national titles going up against Lauren Betts, going off against Kiki Rice. That's a great matchup. Next month, you have Notre Dame versus Texas, and then Notre Dame versus UConn. That's a historic rival. I mean, even during UConn's historic run, Notre Dame, because there were big East rivals for a long time, Notre Dame had been like UConn's kind of main threat for dominance. And even though they're now in different conferences, that's always like, a historic, a great matchup. And then you got UConn versus USC right before Christmas next month on December 21st. You got Juju Watkins against Paige Beckers. That alone is worth the price of admissions right there.
Mm-hmm. Wow, I'm pumped.
Mark your calendars, folks. Mandatory viewing, homework.
Yes. And like we can watch these on streaming.
Yeah, most of them should be nationally televised.
Yeah, national. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think,
great.
Thanks to Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, I think not only WNBA, but women's basketball is getting a lot more attention. And so a lot of these games should be nationally televised for a wider audience. And so you need to keep that momentum going with the next crop of great players.
Sweet.
There you go. So, listeners, check those out. Or just check out the game in general. Like, we listed how many great teams. There's going to be good hoops all year round. That's going to lead us right into the draft, lead us right back into the WNBA season, where we get to see some of these new faces take over the league and change the league landscape, because the game is continuing to grow, and we're here with it, watching it grow, and it's exciting. And I'm glad, Dat, that you're willing to share. You're always a wealth of knowledge when it comes to the college game. If you guys didn't realize that from this, he knows his stuff. So thank you so much for joining us today to talk about the college game. And hopefully, before the season's over, we can have another check-in with you to see some of the big changes. Maybe there's another player that we didn't even mention here that is now shooting up prospect lists because they're taking the league by storm. But just want to say how much we appreciate your knowledge of the game, and hope that you get some success for your Stanford team this season, even if they're not supposed to be one of those powerhouse teams.
Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to you guys. It's always a pleasure to be on your podcast. So thank you for letting me be on and sharing some of my knowledge. So appreciate it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Thanks so much, Dot. I would recommend go get tickets. I'm sure they're cheap to your local college women's basketball games. We are going to see random Villanova games.
Yep.
That'll be fun. Friend of the pod, Laura, has done this, but that's just a good way to support the league, support the women.
Right.
It's just they're short, they're quick. I'm sure it's not that expensive, and like a good little weekend or a little.
Yeah, a nice little couple hours of activity. Like,
yeah, it's fun.
It sometimes it's hard to get to some of these WNBA games if you're not close to any of these cities, but everyone should be relatively close to a college that has a program, even if it's D3.
Yeah,
even if it's D3
whatever.
hoops. Just go enjoy some hoops, enjoy the women's game. It's great. It's better than it's ever been, apparently. That's what we've been told, even though we've only been fans of the W for a season now. We just continue to appreciate it, and there's so much to appreciate outside of just the WNBA, which is why we wanted to focus on college basketball today. Our show will be back later this week. We got a lot of unrivaled stuff to get into. They're going to announce the teams. There are 4 players that we still don't know. It's getting exciting. But just because it's the off season doesn't mean there's not more basketball to watch. So keep your TVs tuned. And again, if you want to connect with us, send us an email, attackthebaseline@gmail.com, or connect with us on Twitter or Bluesky at ATBPod and ATBPod_. Dat, thank you so much again. We will talk to you soon about more college ball or about more W ball, whatever comes up first. But Kristen, I'm looking at the baseline. What are we going to do?
Attack it.
Thank you so much for listening, and we'll be back later this week. But until then, see you later.
Support for this podcast comes from Progressive, a leader in RV insurance. We've all made RVing mistakes, like not pest-proofing the RV for winter, but there's one mistake you shouldn't make: not insuring your travel trailer. Progressive RV insurance can protect your travel trailer when your auto or home insurance can't. Get a quote at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.
In the California Road Trip Republic, we believe you take adventure for a ride. Whether coastal cruising, mountain motoring, or redwood roaming, discover beauty around every turn. Your road trip can kick off from anywhere.
Starting route.
But it should always start at visitcalifornia.com. Then buckle up, crank those tunes, and discover why California is the ultimate playground.
Between bad calls and intense rivalries, there's enough to stress about on game day. Keep your mind on the field and off your body odor with Dove Men Plus Care Whole Body Deodorant. Available at Walmart. Dove Men Whole Body Deo provides all-day odor protection from your pits, privates to feed. From pregame analysis to halftime insights to unexpected overtimes, Dove Men Whole Body Deo gives you confidence that lasts all day. Pick it up at your local Walmart.
This is a Reese's Peanut Butter Cup sound experiment. We're looking to find the perfect way to hear Reese's so you'll buy more of them. Here we go. Reese's, 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 Reese's. Hey, get out of here, you little stinker. Reese's.
Reese's. Reese's.
Peanut butter cups. That breathy one sounded very creepy, am I right?
Hey everybody, I'm Trevor Sikkema, host of the PFF NFL show, here to tell you what you can find on all of our shows throughout the week. On Mondays, we have the grade release show where myself and Dalton Washman break down every single game that you just saw in the NFL. On Tuesdays, we have the quarterback breakdown with Seth Galina. On Wednesdays, we've got the rookie review with John Ledyard and the preview for the upcoming week in the NFL. So make sure you are subscribed to the PFF NFL show wherever you get your podcasts.